Hi P6, hope you're well. We're on to week 2 now of our writing and narrative lessons. Last week we did the benchmark, so you wrote your first narrative by yourself. Don't worry if it was a disaster, we're just learning. If yours was really great, think about how you're going to improve it by the end. This week we're going to investigate key aspects of a story. We talked a little bit about this last week, we're going to look at them in a bit more depth. You can either split this lesson up into 2 days, so do the aspects in one day and do the writing part on the second day. And you can either use the doc that I've attached, or you can write it on paper and send in a picture. It's up to you. Let's get started. In the benchmark lesson, we talked about the importance of stories and what the very best stories do to us. In the second lesson, we're going to look at more detail about what goes into making a good story. Let's start with the structure. Some stories are really long and complex and have many characters, like The Hobbit for example. Other stories stretch across several books in a series like Harry Potter. But what they all have in common is they all follow a basic structure. Every story has a beginning, a middle and an end. In the beginning, the storyteller will establish a setting and a character. They'll try to do this in a way that captures your imagination and sucks you into the book. If you don't get past the beginning of a story because it's boring, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the book is, because no one will ever know. Next comes the middle. This can vary in length depending on the story, but it usually contains a problem, or it could add in a conflict for your character you've been introduced to overcome. Finally is the ending. There are lots of different types of ending. There could be a dramatic rescue, or the ending could be happy or sad. What I want you to do now is find the link below all about structure. There's a video to watch and a game to complete. Pause the video here and complete both parts. I'll see you on the next slide. The next important aspect of any story is setting. As we mentioned last week, setting is where and when the story takes place. Is your story set a long time ago in a galaxy far away? Or is it set tomorrow in your bedroom, underneath that smelly sock that's been there for 6 months? Yes, your mum does know about it. Anyway, setting is really important, and it's important to keep some things in mind when you're planning and writing. What is the setting like? This can be as basic as thinking about, is your story set at daytime or nighttime? Or has the setting changed depending on what place the characters have travelled to? How does the setting impact your characters? Is the setting just part of where the characters live, or is it an important part of the story? Finally, can you picture and imagine the setting clearly yourself? This will help you use adjectives and vocabulary, and it'll help you achieve your targets, which you know are part of your writing. There is now another task for you to complete. This time, I want you to click the link about settings. Watch the video, complete the task. I'll meet you on the next slide. We will discuss characters. No story would be complete without characters. Characters we love, characters we hate, characters that make us laugh, and characters that make us cry. Characters are what generate the feelings in stories. And as we know from last week, that's what makes stories great. When creating a character, it can help to ask questions. Remember, there's no wrong answers because you made them up. Start off with basic questions like thinking about what's their name, where they come from, how did they end up in the story. Then build up a profile by asking more difficult questions, like how would they behave if this happened, or what would they do in this situation. This time, I want you to pause the video and click the link about characters. After that, watch the video and then come up with a question that you think is important to know about a character you're going to create. Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end, and stories are no different. When it comes to ending a story, the options are countless. Some stories have happy endings. Think about pretty much any Disney film you can think of. Others have sad endings. Some have a twist that totally changes how you thought the story would end, or how you feel about the characters. And some stories leave you on a cliffhanger, making you have to figure out and guess what happens next. Pause the video and have a think for 2 minutes about stories which have these kinds of endings. Can you think of an example for each? What we're going to do now is compare two good examples. What you're going to do is click the link for the stories Volcanic Panic and Desert Disaster. I only want to focus on the first 42 seconds of Volcanic Panic and the first 55 seconds of Desert Disaster. This is because we're going to focus in on writing beginnings. But feel free to listen to the whole story later. While you listen, think about these questions. What's the same about these two stories, and why is that? What's different about the two stories, and why do you think that is? Finally, give each a rating out of 10 and think about why you scored what you did. Pause the video here and give the stories a listen. As we mentioned briefly, a good story starts by grabbing the reader's attention and making them want to read more. The theme of the story will change how the author does this. Both examples I gave you on the last slide were action-adventure stories, so they did have similar beginnings. Listen to these openers though, and think about what kind of story they belong to. Witches don't exist! My gran's words echoed round my head as the horrific visage gurned at me through my bedroom window. Keeping watch at the side of the ship, George was tiring, his eyes weary from constantly searching the horizon. Were they also playing tricks on him? What was that waving from the rocks? It was spring 2014 when I first realised I could breathe underwater. Your task now is going to be to write an exciting opening paragraph by yourself. Think about all the key aspects we've looked at, and feel free to steal ideas and examples from the stories that we've looked at today. Anyone who wants a challenge could try to write 2 or 3 different openings focusing on a different theme or genre each time. Good luck, and I look forward to reading your examples.